Coming up today, ministerial-level officials from the two Koreas are meeting for the first time in 8 years. Both sides have agreed that nothing should be off the table. US government expresses deep skepticism over North Korea's recent claim to have developed a hydrogen bomb. Plus, South Korea's import and export prices continued their slide in November on the back of cheap oil prices. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Friday, the 11th of December. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. And we start off with those high-level talks between the two Koreas. South and North Korea are holding their first government-level talks since 2007. On this Friday, for more on the key agenda items, we're going to go straight over to our Unification Ministry correspondent Song Ji-sun, who is standing by for us at the Inter-Korean Dialogue headquarters in Seoul. Ji-sun.
Mark, the plenary session of today's high-level talks ended at 11:10 a.m. this morning, just 30 minutes after it started. And it looks like the talks are off to a very good start with positive opening remarks from both sides. Vice Communication Minister Hwang Bo-ki is representing the South Korean delegation, and his counterpart from the north is Chun Jong-soo, who has a wealth of experience with inter-Korean exchanges like Hwang. Chun opened his keynote speech by saying that even though it is winter now, spring should come for the two Koreas through continued efforts by dismantling distrust and confrontation. Hwang responded by saying, "Let us open the big road to reunification with a good first step." In the morning session, each side outlined their priorities and will return to the table for the afternoon session at 2:30 p.m.
Upon departing for the first round of talks, I must say there are a handful of agenda items between the two Koreas. We try to resolve the issues one by one, step by step.
Well, Ji-sun, like the South's representative mentioned, multiple issues are expected to be debated today, and it was Seoul that proposed not to limit the agendas on the table. So what exactly is expected to be arranged today?
Well, there are a handful of issues, and Seoul wants to not limit the issues and discuss as many outstanding issues as possible. And for Seoul, the first priority is, of course, holding the regular unions for the war-separated families. But on the other hand, Pyongyang wants to resume its Mount Kumgang tour programs, as it was a very good source of income for the North. Now, Seoul's stance on that issue will be the key in how this first round of talks pans out. The South Korean government halted tours in 2008 after a South Korean tourist was shot dead by a North Korean soldier. It wants guarantees from Pyongyang that South Koreans will be safe if the tours resume. And almost everyone agrees that it will be difficult for the two Koreas to narrow their differences during this first round, so there is possibly the talks will stretch far into this night, perhaps until Saturday morning or even beyond. South Korea's unification minister says Seoul will try to reach an agreement the public can accept and trust, as promised when the two Koreas reached their high-level agreement in August. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Ji-sun, for that report. Now, the United States and Russia say they are skeptical about North Korea's recent claim that it possesses a hydrogen bomb. The White House says that while the destabilizing actions of the North Korean regime are worrisome, Kim Jong-un's claims are highly questionable. According to Seoul-based Yonhap news agency, U.S. think tanks, including 38 North and the Center for Non-Proliferation Studies, also have deep doubts about Pyongyang's capability to build a hydrogen bomb. They say North Korea appears to be using hydrogen bomb-building materials to enhance the power of its atomic bomb instead. Now, Russia has echoed both these views, saying the North's claims are likely nothing more than a bluff. Kremlin officials, noting that Kim has made similar false claims before, said it was literally impossible in this modern day to develop a hydrogen bomb without the world knowing first. For the second consecutive year, the United Nations Security Council has added North Korea's human rights issues to the meeting's agenda. Permanent members of the Council, China and Russia, as expected really, were against it, but that could not stop the vote going ahead. Gwon So-ah has this report.
Because the North Korean people continue to endure a, quote, real-life nightmare, is why the UN Security Council met on North Korea's human rights issues on Human Rights Day. That's what the U.S. ambassador to the UN, Samantha Power, who chaired Thursday's meeting, said as the 15 members of the council gathered to discuss the issue for the first time since it was officially added to the agenda last year.
Efforts to engage the government of the DPRK to improve the human rights situation in the country must go hand in hand with efforts to hold perpetrators of crimes accountable.
9 members, including 3 of the 5 permanent members, the United States, Britain, and France, voted for the topic to be discussed, while the 2 other permanent members, China, North Korea's firm ally, and Russia voted against it, along with Venezuela and Angola. 2 abstained. The Chinese representative at the meeting reiterated China's stance on the issue.
China is always opposed to the Security Council's intervention in issues concerning a specific country's human rights. The Security Council is not the place to address human rights, nor should it politicize the issue.
But the majority of the Council believes Pyongyang's human rights crimes have wider implications and pose a threat to the international community. Although not a member of the Council, South Korea's ambassador to the UN, Oh Jun, attended the meeting. He said despite last year's landmark resolution passed at the UN General Assembly calling for North Korea to be referred to the International Criminal Court over alleged human violations, nothing has really changed in the North since then. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Now, one of the clearest indications yet that North Korea is looking to overhaul its flagging financial system, Pyongyang's state-run news agency has announced the country's first banking conference in 25 years. Connie Kim reports.
Is North Korea feeling the need for an overall restructure of its financial system to coincide with economic development? The Korea Central News Agency reported on Thursday that panels of the Financial Bank Conference paid their respects to the late leaders Kim Jong-il and Kim Il-sung at the Kumsusan Palace of the Sun, suggesting the opening of the conference is nearing. The convention will gather representatives from the banking sector to discuss the regime's financial system. The exact date, location, and the size of the conference has not been announced, but it'll be the first in 25 years and the first under Kim Jong-un's rule. Economic data from Pyongyang since Kim's inauguration has indicated the need for an upgraded financial system. From logging an economic growth rate of below 1% in 2011, the figure stood in the 1% range for the following years. Adding weight to the argument that Pyongyang needs improved bank systems, 80% of North Koreans are reported to engage in economic activities through buying and selling at markets under the regime. Analysts also suggest the conference is part of Pyongyang's economic development plan to establish a firm financial base for building infrastructure after a rare party congress in May. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Now, it's one of the most state-of-the-art military technologies in the entire world, but there are serious concerns the US's fifth-generation stealth F-35 fighter jet could be vulnerable to cyber attacks. Now, doubts emerged when the Joint Program Office refused to conduct required cybersecurity tests of the F-35's maintenance computer, tests needed to work out if the jet's highly complex computer systems are vulnerable to hackers. It said realistic hacker tests could damage the jet's software, thereby disrupting flights of the approximately 100 F-35s already in service. Analysts say that if an enemy managed to hack into the software successfully, they could disable F-35 systems in combat, cause crashes, or ground the entire fleet. This is of special interest to South Korea, as the country's Air Force is scheduled to take delivery of 40 F-35s by the year 2021. The Korea EU free trade deal will be fully implemented from this Sunday, as both parties agreed to during a Korea EU summit in mid-September. According to Korea's trade ministry, non-tariff issues will take effect as the FTA also covers intellectual property rights, government procurement, and boosting cultural cooperation. The ministry added that comprehensive implementation will be conducive to promoting and fostering a better business environment for investment on both sides. The EU, the world's single largest economic bloc, is Korea's largest foreign investor and third largest trade partner. The Korea EU FTA went into effect in July 2011. Korea's import and export prices continue to tumble in November on the back of low global oil prices. The Bank of Korea says export prices fell 8.6% on year last month, compared to a drop of 6.2% in the previous month. Now, according to a press release from the central bank, export prices in November were the lowest since September 1986 due to a cut in prices of home appliances, coal and petroleum products. Import prices tumbled 15.6% on year last month, with the average price of Dubai crude dropping 46% in November compared to the same month a year earlier. The United Nations has projected the world economy to grow by just 2.4% this year. In its annual World Economic Situation and Prospects report released on Thursday, the world body cut its forecast for global economic growth in 2015 by 0.4 percentage points, and this is largely due to lower commodity prices, increased market volatility, and slowing growth in emerging market economies. It added that there will, however, be a slight pickup in the following years. The report projected growth in developed economies will gain some momentum next year, reaching 2.9% in 2016 and 3.2% in 2017. The full report will be available next month. Now, it has emerged that the US-led coalition fighting Islamic State militants in Iraq and Syria has killed a handful of the group's key leaders in recent weeks. The Pentagon also says Iraqi troops have improved their operational capability to reclaim their territory. Son Jong-in has more.
U.S. military spokesman Steve Warren confirmed the death of the extremist group's finance minister during the airstrikes on the northern Iraqi town of Tal Afar in late November. In a video briefing from Baghdad, the spokesman for the U.S.-led military campaign against ISIS militants said Abu Saleh was one of the most senior and experienced members of the group's financial network. He said Saleh's death would disrupt their ability to coordinate funding within the organization.
In Iraq, we recently conducted strikes against 3 leaders in ISIL's financial and leadership network. Their removal will degrade ISIL's ability to command and control troops, and it disrupts their ability to finance their efforts.
During the same time frame, U.S. airstrikes also killed Abu Maryam, a senior leader responsible for extortion activities, and Abu Rahman al-Tunisi, an executive officer who coordinated the transfer of people, weapons, and information. The spokesman added Iraqi government troops have consolidated their forces and made important progress by retaking a large part of the ISIS stronghold of Ramadi. He noted the militant group was showing similar aspects to a regular army.
The reason they're operating more like a conventional army is because they have more conventional goals, right? I mean, their stated goal is to create a state, to create a caliphate, if you will. That's the word they use.
The U.S.-led coalition has been carrying out airstrikes against Islamic State militants in Iraq and Syria for over a year, with the aim of eroding the jihadist group's power base. Son Jong-in, Arirang News.
Now it looks like people in Korea will enjoy the same number of days off in 2016 as they enjoyed this year. According to GM Korea's calendar, the 66 red days in 2016 include extended Lunar New Year and Chuseok holidays. The first holiday and long weekend of 2016 will fall on January 1st, which is a Friday. The only change in 2016 will be in February, with the Lunar New Year falling on Sunday, February 7th and extended to February 10th. The Chuseok holiday next year will begin on Wednesday, September 14th, giving Koreans 5 days off if we include the weekend. The final holiday of the year, Christmas, will fall on a Sunday. Well, that's all we have for now on this Friday lunchtime here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom. Thank you as always for watching, and do have an enjoyable weekend. We'll be back throughout the day with more newscasts. Goodbye.